What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. It's the last day of the offseason. Tomorrow, we will have Blazer basketball. And in this video, I'm going to point out 10 different things that I'm looking for this offseason. It will be things that I'm focusing on. Some of them are team-based. Some of them are based off individual players. This is basically a preseason preview. But before we jump into things, I will have an announcement video very soon talking about some of the things we're going to be doing content-wise this preseason and during the regular season. I will also have a couple other big things in that announcement video, so stay tuned for it and make sure you check it out. Our post-game streams for this preseason will be done over on our second channel, Blazers Uprise Live, which is our streaming channel. We stream over there twice a week on Monday and Thursday nights, and we will add 4 preseason game post-game shows to that slate, so make sure you go subscribe. Link is at the top of the description below. So with that being said, let's jump into the 10 things I'll be looking for this preseason. These first 5 things are team-based. Number 1, I will be looking for us running different defensive schemes. I got sick and tired of watching a drop pick and roll coverage last year. That's all we ran, and our defense was awful. There's been talk this preseason about how the Blazers are going to do more things defensively, run more schemes, which is what I've been asking for years. So I want to see the Blazers blitz a pick and roll, hedge a pick and roll, maybe run some 2-3 zone here and there. Derrick Jones Jr. is a great zone defender, so with him in the lineup and with a guy like Robert Covington, the Blazers could have one of the most effective zones in the NBA, and the zone made a little bit of a comeback last season. The Miami Heat ran a phenomenal zone and it worked in the playoffs, so I'd like to see a little bit of that just for a creative splash to give offenses a different look. I'd like to see some token pressure to waste a little bit of shot clock for the opposing offense as well. I just want to see us be creative and try different things, give offenses different looks, because in my opinion, that prepares you to be able to defend against any type of situation. Some players you need to run different schemes against, and we need to be prepared to run any sort of defensive scheme necessary given the situation. We weren't last year, it was very frustrating, so this preseason, I will be looking for us running multiple defensive schemes and hopefully being creative in that area. The number 2 thing I'll be looking for is more ball movement. The offense was very stagnant last year. We were last in the league in assists. Put it simply, I want to see the ball zipping around. I don't want to see a bunch of isolation and heavy one-on-one. I know we have some ISO heavy players in CJ McCollum and Carmelo Anthony, but it doesn't make much sense for those guys to really try all that hard to go one-on-one and score on people. It's the preseason. We need to be working on things that we struggle with. And one of the things we struggle with is ball movement. So I want to see guys passing the ball well and moving the ball. Now, the number 3 thing kind of goes hand in hand with that. I want to see more player movement, more cutting. This will help make it easier to move the ball. Player movement enhances ball movement, and it's very hard to guard if you're moving players well and moving the ball well. And we have a guy in Derrick Jones Jr. who is the main guy that I want to see moving off the ball. I want to see how he looks in our offense. I don't want to see a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. just standing in the corner this preseason. He should be being used as a cutter, as a mover off the ball, because that is his strength in a half-court offense. His strength isn't spot-up shooting. I also want to see Dame used a little bit more off the ball. We've seen this in preseasons past where Dame was ran off screens kind of like a Steph Curry, and he got a lot of good looks in previous preseasons being used in such a way, but the problem is once we got into the regular season, it kind of regressed back to a bunch of pick and roll and isolation for Damian Lillard, where if he was off the ball, he wasn't getting shots, he wasn't really being used in sets where he was running off pin downs all that much. I want to see Dame used more off the ball. I think I asked for this in last year's video where I was talking about things I was looking for in the preseason. This is something I've wanted for years as well. Hopefully we see that this preseason to give us a little hope that it might actually last once we get into the games that actually count. The 4th thing that I'm looking for is more fast break offense. We played a very slow pace last year. We've tended to play a slow pace under Terry Stotts no matter what iteration of the team we've had. Even when we had LaMarcus Aldridge, that was a half-court offense that didn't run that much. Now we play one of the slowest paces in the league, and honestly, this year's roster is kind of built to run. They're probably not going to be top 5 in terms of fast break points, but there's no reason this team should be in the bottom 10 in terms of fast break offense. You got a guy in Derrick Jones Jr. who's kind of the antithesis of what the Blazers normally do. He is terrific on the fast break as not only a lob target, but he can also handle the ball a little bit as well. He fills the lanes well. He is a great transition player. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum should be good in transition as well. Both can handle the ball, both can score on many different types of shots from all three levels. A guy like Harry Giles can even push in transition, and he's a good floor running center. This team has players that can run the fast break. I want to see more fast break offense. It'll give us easier buckets. It'll put less pressure on Dame to make things happen against the set defense in the half court. And we saw just how effective a good fast break offense was in the playoffs last year when the Los Angeles Lakers utilized it heavily against us. I wish we utilized it more against other teams, and hopefully we begin to see that this preseason. The fifth thing I'm looking for is more lob passes. This team has never really thrown lob passes. Even last year when we had a really good lob catching center in Hassan Whiteside, we still didn't really throw many lob passes. Now we got maybe the best lob catcher in the league in Derrick Jones Jr., just a phenomenal athlete. As I said, he's kind of the antithesis to everything that we've done in the past, which is kind of exciting. You know, I was worried about the fit of Derrick Jones Jr., but now I'm just more excited about the possibility that his style of play might bring new things to our team that we didn't do much of before, and the lob pass is one of those. During the training camp footage that I've seen multiple lob passes from guys like Rodney Hood, Damian Lillard, and even Gary Trent Jr., and most of them are pretty good lob passes, and most of them are going to Derrick Jones Jr. Harry Giles is also a decent lob catching big. Alley-oops are fun, but they're also extremely effective, so that's why I want to see more of them. Now we get into the individual based things. The sixth thing I'm looking for is I want to watch Harry Giles because this guy is extremely talented, and I just want to see how he looks compared to Enes Kanter, because honestly I think the backup center role might be a little bit more of a competitive battle than some Blazer fans are expecting. I think it's assumed that Enes Kanter will be the backup center, but Harry Giles has the talent to potentially outplay him and potentially earn that role. So I want to see how Harry Giles looks on the court next to the other players we have on this roster, as well as in our system. The seventh thing I will be focusing on is Derrick Jones Jr.'s jump shot. This guy has not been a good shooter, and it's why I wasn't a fan of the signing at first. But in the bubble, he did shoot 4 for 9 from the three-point line. Now, that's a extremely small sample size, but I think his form in the bubble looked a lot better than it did before the bubble. Before the bubble, he had a weird hitch with his shooting elbow, and he cleaned that up in the bubble. And I think that it might be an indicator that he could be a better shooter than he was last season. Reducing that hitch makes his stroke more repeatable, and obviously the more repeatable your stroke is, the more shots you'll make. So I'm hoping that Derrick Jones Jr. will be knocking down some threes. I don't want him camping in the corner and shooting a bunch of them. I want him cutting off the ball, moving well, playing in transition, and catching lobs. However, if he's able to hit jump shots on top of doing all that, then there's really no limitation to his offensive game, even in our system, no matter how we run it. The eighth thing that I'm looking for this preseason is I just want to see if Anthony Simons has improved compared to last season. He's definitely added a lot of muscle. He finally looks like an NBA player instead of a high school one. I want to see how much improved he looks compared to the Simons we saw last year. Now, he struggled with his shot last year. I'm expecting that to improve a little bit, but I just want to see improvement in terms of his decision making, in terms of him attacking off the dribble, in terms of his defense. And if we run more in transition, I think that suits Simons' game very, very well. Simons is another one of those potential lob catchers that I talked about earlier, but he could be thrust into some serious minutes if one of our guards gets hurt. Now, it's kind of the opposite situation as it was last year for him. Last year, he was thrust into a normal day in, day out rotation role, and he wasn't really ready for it. Now he might be ready for that role, but I don't expect him to play at the start of the season. However, he will likely get spot minutes here or there. If we rest some players, or God forbid, I'm a knock on wood, if we end up with some injuries, then he'll end up playing. And I'm hoping that in those situations where he has to play for us this year, he's able to step up and help the team win games. The first indication of him being ready to do that will be this preseason, and I just want to see some improvement from him. The ninth thing I'll be looking for is Nasir Little, hopefully. We haven't seen Nas since that one scrimmage that didn't count for anything in the bubble against OKC. He had that medical issue which led to him not being able to play during any of the 8 regular games. He couldn't play in the play-in, he didn't play in the playoffs. He would have been helpful. I wanted to see Nas on the court because Nas is a guy who works really, really hard. And I think we would have seen an improved Nasir Little if he got minutes in the bubble this past summer. But he didn't get him. Now he's sick. We all know what that likely means. So he might not be back for the first couple preseason games, but hopefully for the last two, Nas will be back out there on the court and he can get some run and we can see him, because I love watching Nasir Little play. It sucks that we've barely been able to see him play since last March, so I just want to see Nasir Little out there on the court, hopefully looking improved, but I just want to see him on the floor in a Blazer uniform because we've been a little bit starved in that regard. The 10th and final thing I will be looking for is CJ Elleby. I just want to see if this guy looks like an NBA player. We don't know much about him. I haven't really watched him live before. I never watched Washington State. There was really no reason to. So this preseason, I just want to see if he looks like an NBA player. We all know he can shoot. He will probably knock down threes, but I want to see if he can do more than that. If he can slash a little bit, I want to see how his defense looks. I just want to see how he looks on an NBA court. So anyway, those are the 10 things I'm looking for this preseason. Let me know if I missed anything down in the comment section below. Maybe you can add to this list. And as I stated in the intro, be prepared for a season announcement video. I'm super excited for that and some of the things that we have planned for this year. So make sure you tune in so you know what we have coming your way this season. Anyway, that's a wrap for this video. Thank you all for watching. I'm out of here. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.